I was painting tonight and had some thoughts that I wanted to share. Things that I kind of felt were interesting in the direction of how you keep moving forward on a piece when you're feeling insecure about what's immediately in front of you. What I was working on was some paintings on the backs of Magic the Gathering artist proofs. If you're not familiar with what this is, Magic sends all the artists little stack of cards where the reverse side that normally is the Magic logo is just a plain white backing. And over the years, artists would do signatures on them, would do sketches on them, and more recently, a lot of folks have been painting them. I actually started painting when I was working on Marvel Masterpieces, and I had to do sketch cards as part of the contract. Those that set of cards had sketch cards randomly inserted into packs. So I had to do a certain number that I was going to paint and send back to Upper Deck. I didn't want to ruin any of them because they only sent me exactly as many as I had to return. So I did a couple of paintings on the back of Magic cards as a kind of like a warm-up practice type of thing. Anyway, it's something that I've been doing now and again, just a nice little thing, maybe at the beginning or the end of a work day. There's a show coming up at Gallery Nucleus that I'm going to be having some little painted Magic sketch cards in, which one of these is going to be for. And when I'm normally working on an illustration, everything is very meticulously planned. That's become my process, and it's something that I've gotten in the habit of starting very early in my career because I was making these pieces for my portfolio where I would be halfway through a painting and I would feel like I had made hasty choices early on, or I didn't have the proper reference for what I was working on, or any number of other impulsive decisions that I made that got me to a point halfway through the painting where I realized this painting would have been better if I had taken my time and done a little bit more prep. And over the years, that became a lot more prep to the point that now I do a ton of prep before I do anything. It became kind of a curiosity to me, and you can see this in some of the other paintings that I've done time lapses of. What about experimenting with doing less prep? And the paintings of the Ghostbuster cat, the Indiana Jones frog, things like that. The Throg painting was kind of what started it. And I've been having fun with those, and it got me thinking about when I do these little paintings on artist proofs that I don't need to be so meticulous with these. In some ways, it might benefit me to be a little bit looser. And I've never thought of myself as a sketch artist. I see folks at conventions who are very comfortable in that environment, just knocking amazing work out. And now I have just over the years told myself so much that I need my prep work, my reference, my comfortable studio environment to be able to really concentrate and work. And when it's off the cuff or on demand like that, I get nervous that I'm not prepared and that I'm not going to be able to do it. So doing these sketch cards, I've decided to try working a little bit more impulsively, I suppose. The thought that occurred to me as I was working on this is something that I learned at a workshop many, many years ago and has really stayed in my thought process as a painter all along. And it's about addressing the immediate need of the painting and letting that carry you forward. There's a lot of things in process that I feel are really there to help give us the confidence to get to the finish line. For me, this idea is kind of a way to keep moving when you feel a little bit paralyzed. It's something that I learned from watching Bert Silverman do a painting demonstration. Bert Silverman is an amazing painter and illustrator who, when I had the opportunity to go and take some lessons from him, he was extremely renowned, experienced. He'd been working for decades doing both illustration and fine art. And he was doing this portrait demonstration. And his setup was just a model in a chair. He was doing kind of like a head and shoulders type portrait. And he began with just a single continuous line that was tracing the contour as he was seeing it of the model's outline. And then on top of that, he started putting down these big tonal shapes. And then on top of that, he started putting down smaller and more precise tonal shapes. And he was working the entire piece globally. He was thinking about everything. He wasn't just focused on the portrait or the eye or the hand or anything like that. He was focused on everything all at the same time. I believe, if my memory is correct, he talked about this being something that he got in the habit of doing when he's working with live models, because time is up when you least expect it. And he didn't like finishing a session where part of the painting looked finished and part of it looked like he hadn't gotten to it yet. So he wanted to work on pieces in such a way that if the session ended before he was ready, the piece would still hold together. It would still look finished. There was like kind of an internal cohesiveness to everything. And he did that by thinking about the whole piece as a whole and what is the next most important thing that needs to happen, and do that. And just keep doing that again and again and again until you're finished, which sounds simple, is maybe not so easy as it sounds. But the philosophy of it, I think, is it really just boils down so much of painting to such a simple idea, which is, if you only had another 30 seconds to work on this piece, or if you only had one more brushstroke that you could make, what is the next thing you can do that's going to make an improvement to the piece? What is the thing that you can do right now that's going to add something to the piece or improve the piece in some way? And then just keep doing that. And it was truly incredible to watch his demonstration, because very quickly he resolved something that was recognizable to the scene that he was painting. And then as he worked on it, it really did look like something that was out of focus coming into focus. It was like watching a Polaroid develop. It was just this feeling of he could stop at any time. At so many points, it looked like the piece was finished, but then he would keep going and he would just keep making it more alive and more real. And never did it feel like he was favoring one area over another area in a way that didn't make sense in the piece. There was that hierarchy, of course, of focal points and supporting areas, but ultimately everything was in balance all the time. And it was because of addressing whatever the most immediate need was that the piece had, and not getting lost in the weeds of something. So as I'm working on these, that's been in my mind, because without my normal safety net, I like to build myself a very secure safety net before I start painting normally. And without that, it is discomforting to be, halfway through a piece like this, and even something so small and simple, I'm not totally sure what needs to happen next, because I can't look at the reference that I've meticulously created for myself. I have to just look at the painting and decide, well, what does it need? What's the next thing that's going to make this piece a better piece? When there's nothing there but just this sketchy, barely anything pencil drawing, the next thing it needs some tone, and it needs some light and dark shapes, and it needs some color. And as I keep adding those things, same as the process I was describing of starting with the big shapes and then getting smaller and smaller shapes inside of it. And it really, at different times as I was working on these, it felt like I'm a little bit nervous. I don't know what to do with this piece next. And so then I would just look at it and think to myself, well, what's missing from it? What is going to make it better? And it might be, once I got all of those, rough tones put down, and then looking at the the piece and saying, well, I need to start tightening up in an area that is important to the piece, which the eyeball was the thing that I decided I can start painting this eye. And then as I work the eye into the lotus, into the rest of Fibblethip, and then into the surrounding environment, the whole time it's really just asking that question of what's the next thing that's going to make this look better. It's really the essence of painting, is looking, observing, processing, and thinking what is missing, what can be added, what should be taken away, what can be done, and not in a 10, 20, 100, 1,000 steps down the line kind of way that's completely overwhelming and unrealistic, but in a reactive way. It's just trusting yourself to be able to evaluate the piece on a constant, ongoing basis and make adjustments, incremental adjustments that are going to bring it closer and closer to the place that you want to be. You don't have to know the entire route. You can find it as you go, as long as you're paying attention and staying in tune with that question, what does this piece need next?